I didn't cry. That's the part I keep coming back to. My daughter had just spent 11 days. 11 days. Building something beautiful for a family that didn't even bother to text a real apology. And I stood in our kitchen at 6:30 in the morning, looking at the folding tables we'd borrowed from our neighbor. The hand-lettered place cards my daughter Willa had made with her calligraphy set. The mason jars filled with dried lavender she'd collected herself, and I didn't cry. I think I was too stunned to. Let me back up. My mother-in-law turned 70 this past spring. 70 is a milestone. It's the kind of birthday that deserves something real. Not a restaurant reservation and a store-bought cake, but an actual gathering. Something with effort in it. My husband's family had been talking about it since the previous fall. Every group chat message, every holiday phone call, every Sunday dinner. Someone brought it up. We have to do something big. Mom deserves a real celebration. Let's not let this one slide by. So when my daughter, who is 16 and has the kind of heart that embarrasses you in the best possible way, came to me in February and said she wanted to plan the whole thing herself, I didn't hesitate. I want to cook, she told me. She was sitting at the kitchen counter with a notebook, already sketching a menu. Not just one thing. I want to do the whole spread. Appetizers, mains, sides, desserts, everything from scratch. I asked her if she understood what that meant. 17 people at the time. It eventually grew to 23, 3 courses, dietary restrictions, a grandmother doesn't eat shellfish, an uncle who is newly vegetarian, cousins who will only touch food if it doesn't look weird. She nodded without looking up from her notebook. I've been watching videos. I already have a grocery list. That was February. The party was set for the last Saturday of April. Willa started practicing in March. She made the mushroom tart 4 times before she felt right about it. She tested 2 different versions of the lemon olive oil cake. One with rosemary, one without, and did a blind taste test with our neighbors to pick the winner. She learned how to properly blanch green beans because she'd read that the color matters when you're feeding a crowd. She watched tutorials on how to time multiple dishes in one oven so nothing goes cold. I watched her from the doorway some evenings. She'd have her notebook open on the counter, her phone propped against the backsplash, showing a cooking video, her hair pulled back. Sometimes she'd call out to me, "Mom, do you think she'll like caramelized onions? Or is that too much?" And I'd tell her yes. Her grandmother-in-law loves anything savory, and Willa would nod and write something down. My husband's mother. I'll just call her Grammy. Because that's what everyone in the family calls her. She and Willa have always had a special bond. Even when my husband and I were first dating, before Willa was born, Grammy was the one who welcomed me at the door with both arms and a dish towel over her shoulder, because she'd been cooking since noon. She is the kind of woman who feeds people as an act of love, and Willa understood that instinctively. This was Willa's love language, translated into Grammy's. 2 weeks before the party, I confirmed the head count with my mother-in-law. Grammy's daughter, my husband's sister, the one who had originally floated the idea of doing something big. 23 people. She said yes, everyone was coming. She was excited. She asked what she could bring, and I told her nothing. Willa had it covered, and she laughed and said she couldn't wait to see what Willa put together. I should have asked for that in writing. The Friday before the party, the day before. Willa had been in the kitchen since 7 in the morning. She'd taken the day off from school, which I had arranged with her teachers 2 weeks in advance. She was making everything that could be prepped ahead. The tart shells, the marinated vegetables, the cookie dough that needed to chill overnight, the 2 quarts of lemon curd, the hand-rolled pasta that was now draped over a drying rack we'd set up in the dining room. My husband was at work. I was working from home, checking in every hour or so, making grocery runs when she ran out of something. By 4 in the afternoon, our kitchen smelled like browned butter and thyme, and something faintly sweet. Willa had flour on her jaw and a blister on her thumb from the zester, and she was humming to herself. At 5:17, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my husband's sister. "Hey, so we've been talking, and we actually made a reservation at Hargroves for tomorrow. It's kind of a more grown-up vibe, and Grammy's been wanting to go there for ages. It'll just be the adult siblings and their spouses. Hope that's okay. I read it 3 times. I read it 3 times because I kept thinking I was misunderstanding something. I kept looking for the part where she explained. This was in addition to our party, not instead of it. The part where she acknowledged that my daughter had spent the better part of 2 weeks preparing, the part where she said sorry. There was no that part. I set my phone face down on the counter. Willa was at the stove, stirring something, her back to me. I stood there for a moment, and I thought about what kind of mother I wanted to be in this exact moment. Not the kind who screams. Not the kind who sends a text she'll regret. Not the kind who falls apart in front of her daughter before her daughter even knows there's anything to fall apart about. Hey, honey, I said very calmly. I'm going to step outside for a second. I went to the back porch and I called my husband. He didn't know either. His sister hadn't told him. When I read him the text, there was a long silence, and then he said quietly, "She's been cooking all day. She's been cooking for 11 days, I said. Another silence. I'll call my sister, he said. No, I said, not yet. Let me think. I stood on the back porch for a while. It was a cool evening, that particular blue-gray dusk you get in late April when the days are getting longer, but the warmth hasn't fully arrived yet. I could hear Willa through the screen door still hummings. I thought about all the ways this could go. I could call my husband's sister and demand an explanation. I could send a group text to the whole family laying out what Willa had done. I could cry or yell or make this a whole thing that would follow us into every holiday for the next decade. Or, I went back inside. Willa, I said. She turned around. She had a wooden spoon in one hand and reading glasses perched on her nose. She'd started wearing them for close-up work, a habit that made her look 45 and adorable simultaneously. The party's going to look a little different tomorrow, I said. I kept my voice steady. Some of the family had a change of plans. But I've been thinking, and I want you to hear me out. She looked at me carefully. Willa has always been able to read me. She gets it from her father. What happened? She said. Grammy's kids decided to take her to dinner instead, I said. At Hargrove's. She was quiet for a moment. She set the wooden spoon down on the rest. Because of me, she said, and that right there is what I will never fully forgive. Not the text from my sister-in-law, not the fact that nobody thought to call ahead, or check, or consider that a 16-year-old had rearranged her entire spring sum around this. What I will never fully forgive is that my daughter's first instinct was to wonder if she had done something wrong, that she had internalized enough of other people's carelessness to immediately turn it inward. Absolutely not, I said. This has nothing to do with you. This is about them not being as thoughtful as you are. She nodded once, looked at the stove, looked back at me. So what do we do? She said. I looked at the pasta on the drying rack, the cookie dough in the fridge, the 2 quarts of lemon curd, the tart shells cooling on the wire rack, the flowers she'd arranged in 3 mason jars on the windowsills because she'd thought the tables should look pretty. We have the party anyway, I said. She blinked. For who? For Grammy, I said. I'm going to call her right now. I'm going to invite her over for lunch tomorrow, just her, and tell her you made something special. And then I'm going to call everyone else we actually like, and we're going to fill these tables. Willa looked at me for a long moment. She might want to go with them, she said. She might, I said. That's her choice, but I'm going to give her the option. I called Grammy at 6 o'clock. I kept it simple. I told her Willa had been preparing something for her birthday for almost 2 weeks and would love to share it with her. I didn't say anything about the restaurant. I didn't poison the well. I just told her the truth. Your granddaughter worked very hard on something for you, and if you'd like to come by tomorrow afternoon, we would love to have you. Grammy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, She cooked for me? For 11 days, I said. Another pause. I'll be there at noon, she said. Then I called our neighbors, the couple next door, who we've known for 8 years, who have watched Willa grow up through their fence, who bring over tomatoes every August and porch sit with us on summer evenings. I called my college roommate and her husband, who lived 20 minutes away. I called my husband's cousin, a gentle, funny man who had never really fit into the louder side of the family, and who, when I explained the situation, said, "I'll bring wine," without needing another word. I called two of Willa's closest friends' parents because Willa would want familiar faces. I called our former next-door neighbor who had moved 3 towns over, but who still drove back for every meaningful thing. By 8 that night, we had 18 confirmed guests, not 23. Not the family that had planned to come, and then decided a restaurant was more their speed. 18 people who, when I said, "Willa made this, and she'd love to share it," said yes without hesitating. I went to bed that night, and I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about all the ways tomorrow could still go wrong. Grammy canceling, the food not turning out. Willa feeling like this was a consolation prize rather than a real celebration. I lay there in the dark and I listened to my husband's breathing and I thought, I cannot control what my husband's family did. I cannot undo it. What I can do is make sure that tomorrow, my daughter knows her work mattered. I got up at 6. Willa was already in the kitchen. She'd been there since 5:30. She later told me she woke up and just felt ready, and she didn't want to waste the feeling by lying in bed. She was wearing her apron, the one she'd picked out herself 2 years ago, a deep forest green with a pocket in the front. And she had the pasta water already going, and the oven was preheating, and she was checking things off her notebook list with the pencil. She looked up when I walked in. 18 people, I told her. Grammy's coming at noon. Something shifted in her face. Not quite relief, but adjacent to it. Okay, she said. I need to adjust the timing on the tarts. I didn't hover. I made coffee. I set the tables. We'd pushed our dining table up against the folding tables to make one long surface, covered in a linen tablecloth Willa had ironed the night before, and I stayed out of her way. She didn't need me in the kitchen. She needed me to trust her. Grammy arrived at 12:02. She was dressed up. She'd worn a blouse I recognized as one she saves for special occasions, a pale blue with small pearl buttons, and she was carrying a small wrapped package. She stood in the doorway and took in the table, the place cards, the lavender in the mason jars, and I watched her face do something I will keep with me for a long time. Willa did all this, she said. Every bit, I said. Willa came out of the kitchen. She had flour on her collarbone and her hair had escaped its ponytail in the way it always does. And she was holding a dish towel, and Grammy walked straight to her and took her face in both hands. Your mother told me you worked on this for almost 2 weeks, Grammy said. Willa nodded. For my birthday. Yes, Willa said. Grammy looked at her for a moment. Then she pulled her in and held her there for a long time. The way you hold someone when you're trying to say something that words don't quite reach. Guests started arriving around 12:15. By 1 o'clock all 18 were there and the table was full. And our house was full of exactly the kind of noise a house should be full of. Talking, laughing. Someone asking what that smell was because it was incredible. Someone else asking Willa for the recipe for the mushroom tart before they'd even finished eating it. Grammy sat at the head of the table. Willa sat next to her. I watched from the kitchen doorway while Willa explained each dish to the table. Where the lavender in the cake came from. Why she'd chosen olive oil over butter. What she'd learned about blanching that she hadn't known before. She spoke with the quiet confidence of someone who had genuinely earned what she was saying. Not performing, just sharing. At one point, Grammy tapped her water glass and stood up. I want to say something, she said. The table went quiet. I've had a lot of birthdays, she said. Some very fancy ones. Some with a lot of people and a lot of noise. She paused. This is the best one. Not because of the food, although the food is extraordinary. She looked at Willa. Because someone thought about what would make me feel loved, and then she did the work. I didn't cry during any of this either. I'm not sure what that says about me. We ate for 2.5 hours. Nobody rushed. Grammy stayed until nearly 4, which is unusual for her. She typically leaves gatherings early because crowds tire her out, but she didn't seem tired. She seemed the opposite of tired. My husband's sister texted him at around 2 in the afternoon. How's the thing going? He didn't respond. The text from his mother came that evening. I heard you went to the restaurant. Grammy had apparently called her daughter after getting home, and from what Grammy told us later, that call was not a comfortable one. I don't know exactly what was said. I know that my mother-in-law used a phrase Grammy repeated to us. You could have come. You chose not to. Simple as that. In the weeks that followed, the family conversation shifted. My husband's sister sent Willa a belated card with a gift card inside, which Willa thanked her for politely, and then set on her desk and didn't touch for a month. There were some tense Sunday calls, some pointed silences at a family dinner in May. My husband navigated it better than I expected. Not making peace for the sake of peace, but also not burning anything down. Willa, for her part, moved on faster than I did. She's already talking about what she wants to make for Grammy's birthday next year. She mentioned wanting to learn how to make fresh bread, which is, apparently, a whole different skill set from pasta. And she's already watching videos. She doesn't talk about what happened with any bitterness. When I brought it up once, carefully, she shrugged in the way teenagers shrug when they've already processed something adults are still chewing on. Grammy came, she said. That's what mattered. I've thought about that a lot. About how my daughter, at 16, had already figured out the thing it takes some people 50 years to learn. That you cannot make people show up for you, and that spending your energy waiting for them is a waste of something you can't get back. What you can do is turn toward the people who do show up and make something real for them. She set a beautiful table for 23 people. 18 sat down, and it was without question enough. I used to think that justice was loud, that it had to be announced, witnessed, delivered with some ceremony. What I've learned from watching my daughter that day is that sometimes justice is very quiet. Sometimes it's just Grammy holding Willa's face in her hands in our doorway, at noon, wearing her good blouse. Sometimes it's a table full of people who said yes.